Welcome to the podcast Running Toward. This podcast tells stories of ordinary people who couldn't look away once they saw the hidden crisis in foster care and the families impacted. Our guests share heartbreak that led them to take reluctant and unexpected small, faithful steps toward the most vulnerable in their communities. Not because they had a plan, and not because they felt ready, but because they couldn't unsee their pain. You'll hear how people living normal lives discovered that getting closer changed them. Their comfort mattered less, their grip on uncertainty faded, and their faith got feet in quiet, everyday ways. Ending the crisis for one or for all isn't a quick fix. It's a long, slow, often messy journey alongside one of the most overlooked and misunderstood groups in our community. Running Toward gives you a front row seat to the hidden crisis in foster care and the families impacted, and to the ordinary people who choose not to look away. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Running Towards podcast. Thank you for joining us today. Today, you get the privilege of hearing my friend Alex as she shares her incredible story of just another unique version of how people ended up in foster care. That was not on her bingo card either. It was not on her radar. She was in college, working a part-time job, doing some great things with a hobby, and spending a year traveling around Texas. And then the Lord placed her at a child placing agency for a job. And that's how she got introduced to foster care. And it totally, I would say, wrecked your life, changed your life in the best of ways. But so today you get to hear yet another story of how foster care changed what she had planned in her life. So thanks, Alex, for being here.
Oh, thanks for inviting me.
All right. So same question we give everybody. Tell us what a typical Wednesday looks like in the Wallendorff home.
Typical Wednesday. Well, my husband Will and I, we live in New Braunfels, and he manages a ranch there. So, kind of have the rural lifestyle. And then we now have 3 daughters that we adopted from foster care. They're currently 9, 8, and 6. So they keep us busy. Mm-hmm. And that's just kind of a snapshot of our day to day.
Yes. And you get to stay at home, work full time as a mom. Right.
For the majority of it, yes. I also lead the foster and adopt ministry at our church, but that's very, very part-time.
Yeah. Great. Cool. So now let's go flashback. So before foster care entered y'all's realm, or even before Will entered your realm, what were you chasing? What did the success look like in your season? Young 20s, college? What was the plan?
Yeah, all of that. So it's kind of funny. Initially, I was at A&M, but pursuing a wildlife and fishery sciences degree. Okay. So I know it sounds very much like me. No, I think if you did know me, I grew up on a ranch. I enjoy animals, and so that's kind of the route I was going. Then I took a year off of school, not on purpose, but I was Miss Rodeo Texas, and so I got to act as an ambassador and kind of travel around the country representing agriculture. And as I returned for my senior year of college at A&M, I had, people after that year of traveling around saying, like, you should work in TV, you should, work in the agricultural industry, but like within communications. And so I changed my degree and was like, yeah, I'll pursue broadcast journalism and communications. And so I did that. Kind of the people pleaser in me was like, yeah, they're telling me I should do this, so I'll do this. And simultaneously, I had an interview or an internship lined up with a TV station and college station. So I was like, great. I changed the major, have the internship. I'm on track to potentially get into broadcast journalism like my friends and family and others are saying I should do. So they'll be happy. But at the same time, that's an unpaid internship in college.
Right, always. So
I got on the Jobs for Aggie's website just thinking I'm going to, look for a part-time job while I'm in school. And so, no real idea, just seeing what's out there. And I come across a listing for a case manager at a child placing agency. And it's just so funny to me how just, here it is, so random.
A clear next step for a college student.
Yeah. And, I really didn't know much about foster care. I think it was similar to the general public of, you hear stories here and there, but they're usually pretty negative. Uh-huh. And that's just kind of the gist of it. But I had always thought that I wanted to adopt one day. And I was like, well, this kind of falls in line, adoption can be part of that. So I'm just going to apply and see what happens. Like, I feel like it's a job that I would be interested in at least. But again, not necessarily on my career path. And so I go in for my interview with the director of the agency, and he had told me, he said, well, technically you can't be a case manager yet because you don't have a degree. And I was like, okay, but it was on the student website. But I guess there are students that are maybe, in the graduate program.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, well, thank you, for your time and considering me. And I'll never forget, he sat back in his chair and he said, but I really think God has you for a reason, or like here for a reason. And so I'm just going to create this like part-time clerical position to where you can get to know the system, the agency, and then if you still want to pursue becoming a case manager when you graduate, you can. And so I was just kind of like, that sounds great.
Yeah.
So that's how it came about.
So the Lord created a position for you.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, or like that's how I came into foster care, was through that agency, but it really showed me it was something I cared about and wanted to pursue instead by the time I graduated college, because I got to simultaneously intern at this TV station and work at this child placing agency,
right,
and just see like, ooh, this really isn't me and where my heart is. This is.
Right.
So that was a neat time.
Yeah, I love that beginning. And it just, with all these stories, it's never been like, well, I had this A to B to C planned and this is how it played out. It's always like, oh, it was this massive right or left turn that God threw at you through, unexpected circumstances. So, so when you're imagining your future, even after you're at the child placing agency, what was that looking like? You're doing those dual tracks kind of, and then you figure out, no, this is really what I'm passionate about. So then what were you envisioning for the next season?
Yeah. So I just kind of rolled with it. I guess I didn't have like long-term pictures necessarily, but I remember, at the TV station having that conversation where they're also like, once you graduate, you could become, a reporter if you want to. I'm like, okay. But then, having the same conversation with the director at the agency of, if you graduate, you can become a case manager. And again, that's what I, decided on pursuing, because I felt like that's really where the Lord was leading me. It felt like this is something he really cares about. Not that, what people can portray through journalism isn't something he cares about either, but I just really felt like that was the direction he had me heading in. And so I did become a case manager. And so getting to walk alongside all those foster families, I got, as close as you can get to a front row seat to all the highs and lows and all of that. But it also showed me that foster care was something that I wanted to be part of my future in a more direct way as a foster parent. So that was that. And then once my husband and I started dating, it was probably our third date, maybe second date. I don't know. We were both pretty sure after like our first or second date that like, this is probably it for us. And so it was like, all right, let's start having those long-term conversations already. And so I had told them that I did, he had heard about my job through our conversations. And I told him, this is something I also want to pursue, like for my own family. Like I want to become a foster parent, and not like, maybe in a decade or way down the road.
Hopefully she'll forget about that later.
Right. It was like pretty soon, probably. And, he wasn't like, okay, well, we'll see, or I've never considered that. He was like, yeah, like I think that would be great. And anyone can say that.
Right.
But he's the kind where he meant it and he did it. So that's, I guess, kind of the big picture of, I became a case manager, but then knew I also wanted to become a foster parent too.
Yeah. So when you're young, not married, no kids, you're a case manager for these families who are like in the trenches. So now you've kind of been on both sides of the coin, probably had that case manager that's just a baby, precious. So when you were like young and doing this case management, what were you thinking when you're looking at these families who have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids, some of them, foster, some of them forever kids? What was going through your head as you're starting to process like, oh, I think I actually want to do this someday? And also I'm 22 and trying to coach these people up on parenting.
I know. And that's what's so, like, it felt silly about it. Are you wanting me to come in and tell these parents what they should or shouldn't be doing? Right. No. Like, and I don't think I really was that person. I think I saw myself as a case manager more of Like, I'm here to be a listening ear, and I'm here to help where I can. Like, if there's resources I can connect you to or other families I can connect you to. But I never really saw myself as the kind coming in like, you should try this for your parenting. So I was like, you know that I haven't parented, and it would be silly for me to be like, you should do this. And so I think that's where, like, I kind of knew my place in that role of, you know, I'll tell you what the agency is saying we need to do training-wise and licensing-wise, but I'm not here to tell you how to parent. I'll connect you to resources and all of that. But does that kind of answer?
Yeah. So when you're, you know, you said like you have like a cursory before case management, you had this like mostly negative view of foster families because that's how they all get portrayed in the news. What were you seeing as you're working with these foster families on the front lines? What are you seeing about foster families that maybe the news media and the general population doesn't get to hear about?
Right. The complete opposite of what you see in the news. And the families were just so caring and willing to do, you know, whatever it took to help the kids. And like I said, just the opposite of what you think it's going to be. And then on the flip side, you know, it's not only them caring for the kids. I would also see families that met with the biological family, and some of them that had these stories of, you know, getting to kind of become mentors or discipling the biological families. And so it was just like, these are not the things you hear about. Like, they care about the kids as if they're their own.
Right.
They're connecting with these families and building relationships with them rather than treating them as enemies, you know? And so just having that inside look was really sweet.
Yeah.
So
I'm always shocked that you went, like, I feel like if I'd gone from case management and God had called me into foster care, I'd have been like, I know too much. I can't do this. Like, you got to see all the good and the bad, not the bad foster families, but the bad ways that things can play out within the system. And the fact that you are kind of seen as a babysitter and that you don't have really any voice in the court system, at least. And none of that deterred you.
Yeah, no, it didn't. And I mean, I could see how that could deter someone. To be like, I know the ins and the outs. I'm not doing this.
Right.
But I think for me, and maybe it's because I'm more like, I like to know what I'm getting into. I knew, I mean, obviously it's different being a parent 24/7 versus a case manager here and there. But I kind of liked the idea of like, I knew what to expect. I knew it was still all unexpected and anything can happen. But even that like helped me to know.
Right.
So there was some like comfort in knowing the crazy ahead of time.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
I don't know.
That's good.
Yeah.
So, so you and Will meet. You've already had this conversation. You guys get married. Take me through that timeline of how you're like I-dos to licensing classes.
So our marriage even started out crazy, which I guess is just setting us up for the rest of our lives.
Right.
Because we got engaged December 2019 with hopes of getting married in June 2020. And we all know what happened in 2020. And so, you know, there's this big wedding being planned and it all has to be shut down because everything shut down again in June of 2020. And so we get married just with our immediate family on the family ranch that Will now manages. And so I like to reflect on that because I'm like, it was a good setup for life.
This
of
is
like,
what we had planned. This is what's going to happen.
Life is unpredictable.
This is what you had planned. This is what's
We're not in control.
It's a really good early teacher for you.
Yes.
I didn't have to wait like 10 years to figure that out.
We got it day one. So, so that's the way it started, which, you know, also led to just like a weird first year of marriage of like being home and not getting to go to the things. But I guess even that was kind of sweet of like, we are getting to spend all this time together that we wouldn't have otherwise, which looking back is nice because we knew we were kind of on like an expedited route to kids.
Right.
And so we knew like we wanted at least 1 year under our belt of being married. And so we did that. And then pretty soon after our first anniversary is whenever the agency I was working for, we had the conversation of, I would like to foster, but I would like to foster with y'all, not, you know, be a case manager and then go get licensed somewhere else to foster because that sounded wild to me.
Right.
So we started that conversation and then started the licensing process. And we had wanted to be licensed in October of 21. So again, in December of 21, because I liked the idea of kids being able to come into our home for Christmas. It's like, oh, that's really sweet, you know, whatever. And I mean, they need someone any time of the year. And it literally just stayed a plan because that's when I was part of the alliance.
Right.
Y'all saw me walk through all of
this.
But Will and I lived in like this really old ranch house, and it was precious, but it was old, like I said, like almost a century old, and pier and beam, old rock, think of like a really cute old cabin. And it sounds crazy. I used to hate to talk about it, but now I'm like, it's kind of cool to look back and see the timing of it all.
Best story. You have to tell it.
But Will and I, we went to Hawaii in October 21, again, thinking like we'll be licensed in December. Right. So this is kind of like our baby moon, our last outing before the kids come. And we come back home after that week away, and we have a flea infestation at our house. And like, I only thought that happened in like gross places. Right. But we're pretty clean.
It's
people.
not that you have 10 dogs in your house. No.
And so we're like, okay, and we start trying all the different things. And man, like we're trying all the different things. We have people come out. We are looking at different, DIY remedies. It's gotten so bad that we go stay at my mom and stepdad's house, and thinking it'll be like a few nights. And it ends up being 3 months at their house. And so in this time, December's come and gone. So my dream of having kids for Christmas is gone.
Yeah.
And so, but again, we're doing this because, my parents like, well, maybe you should wait. I think they were wanting us to wait to foster anyways. And now we're like kicked out of our house by fleas, just wild things. And we're like, no, it's fine. We're going to do it. God's allowing us to do it. So we're going to do it. And so, and like that house, it was precious, but it might not have passed a health inspection anyways. Just like I got electrocuted there when there's other things that happen anyways. And so like, it's probably good. They kicked us out, and then we went and bought a house just kind of impulsively so that we could foster.
Right.
And so we move into this house and have to, redo some of the licensing process now that we're in a new house.
Right.
And then April of 22, so a little bit delayed, is whenever we're licensed. But even before we're licensed, I get a call from, my old boss, one of the directors at the agency. And she's asking, I know you're not licensed yet, but you will be soon. I have these 3 sisters. Like, what are your thoughts? Kind of sharing their background and story. And, as a couple that hasn't, we almost had 2 years under our belt by this point. That has never had kids. You're like, 3 kids at one time.
The whole instant family thing.
Yeah. Because we had kind of thought 1 or 2 and then we'll see. But I really did, there's that kind of just initial surprise. But then I really had a peace about it. And even talking with Will about it, he was like, yeah, it's fine. Even though other people were telling us we shouldn't, or telling us that was crazy to start out that way. And I understand.
Yeah.
I would probably think the same thing if I would have thought the same thing about myself until it happened to me. And so we ended up saying yes. And it wasn't an emergency placement. That's why she could ask me before we were licensed, because it was more of a scheduled move. Mm-hmm. They had been removed in March of that year and placed into 2 separate foster homes. And one of our daughters, her foster family, they had like a change in their job to where they had to move her and her younger sister. But then CPS was saying, if we're going to move them, I'm moving all of them.
Yeah, get them together.
I want them together. So we, I guess, never really got to experience the emergency, like they're coming tonight, type of placement.
But ahead.
Yeah, they came a few weeks later.
So you talked a little bit about it, but what are all your people saying to you in this season? Like your friends, your family, extended family, are they like, y'all are absolutely crazy? Or are they, we'll help you out, but how, aren't you going to have your own kids first? Like, how was the conversation around you and Will as you're making this decision?
Yeah, I think we heard all of those things in one way or another. And I know when people bring up those concerns, I know it's with good intentions.
For sure.
I know it's because they care about us. So yes, we did have the family that's like, you should wait if you're going to do it at all.
Right.
Or yes, why don't you have your own kids first and then wait and do that later? But for Will and I, that was part of the conversation, was like, this is kind of plan A for us. We're just going to do this. We're going to be obedient to what I feel like God has called us to. And then, if biological kids come down the road, fine. If they don't, fine. Like, we trust his plan for us and our family. And, there were some that were even more stern than others, and just like their disagreement about it.
So that really bumped against your people pleasing from college. You really made a lot of progress in a few years. You were like, nope, this is what we're doing anyways.
That's true. And that might have been kind of the shifting point for me, because I used to be I did just want the others to be happy and very people pleasing. But I think it's foster care that really brought me to this point of like, no, I'm standing up for someone else. It's not about me anymore. Right. And it, like, so you don't have to agree with me for me to still step in faith into this. Right. And so, yeah, I think that might have been some of my first, like, I get it, but I'm doing it.
Oh, that's great. See, free therapy right there. Yeah. So you guys are newlyweds. I mean, essentially, your baby's in marriage. So how did that season, you guys are like fortifying, now we're going to do this, even if, nobody or anybody agrees with us. And then you're like, insto family, 3 kids, 3 girls that, you didn't get to learn all of their habits and their likes and dislikes, and you have no idea what they're coming in with, the trauma that they've experienced. How did that impact y'all's marriage?
I mean, I feel like in one sense it made things hard, but I feel like more than anything, it made us even closer. And I feel like I still see that in our marriage because we came into it so missionally minded and because we're so, like in step on these decisions. It's like the difficulty brings us together. Yeah. And absolutely. It's those moments where it's like, this is crazy. She just like bit you and she's yelling at me. But it's like, but we're doing it.
And we signed up for this.
Yeah, we signed up for this. And I mean, don't get me wrong. There are definitely like, the arguments because you are more stressed now that it's not just you and your preferences or plans. Like there's, 3 other people involved now. So yeah, I mean, it brought more stress, which obviously can bring more disagreements and frustrations. But overall, it really, even to this day, brings us close together, knowing like even though it's hard, we're doing what God has called us to do, and it means something. Yeah, absolutely.
You kind of came in different than a lot of our guests in that you had already had a behind the curtain view of foster care. But was there anything that once you actually brought foster care into your home that you were like, oh, I didn't see that coming? Like, were there things that you were like, whoo, I thought I was going to do better at this or handle this better. I thought this wouldn't bother me. Were there things that you were shocked by still?
Yeah. Yeah, I think like regarding the system itself, there wasn't necessarily any surprises or weren't any surprises. I think it was more so just everything is magnified and elevated now because it's in my home. Like I knew it was possible and I felt for the families, but of course I can't totally like empathize with what they're going through, but now I can. And so I think kind of like that feeling you talked about earlier of you have a voice in a sense, but then not really whenever it comes down to things. Yet you're the one that is expected to
24/7.
Yeah, do all the things, but you don't need to share about it. Right. And so I felt that, at a real level. And then again, through working with families, I knew of different behaviors or trauma responses or different things that could come up. But then whenever they're 24/7 in my home, that's totally different. So I think that part of it, again, not necessarily surprising, like, I didn't know that it would be this way. I didn't know what happened, but just the shock of like, ooh, this is all the time now. And it's a lot.
I think that was every year when we'd have to, as a foster parent, you have to do those classes every year. And I was always roll my eyes, but every year I would go back and go, oh, right, that's what I need to be. Because it's in theory, it sounds like, oh, yes, I'll get down on their level. I make eye contact. We'll do this in a loving, correcting way. But then it's times 3 and it's all the time. And you are also trying to cook dinner and answer a phone call and all the other things that go into it. And it's just,
totally.
Theory sounded great, but in practicality.
No, I think that especially. And just like in general parenting, I think everyone probably does that of like, oh, I'm going to be great at this and do it this way. And then it's like, here's life. And same, you go to the trainings and you're like, oh, yes.
Yeah. But we're just trying to get through HEB.
Yeah. Real life happens.
So let's pivot a little bit. Tell me about the moment at CAFO and receiving the text about the teen.
Yeah. So that was CAFO this past October of 25. So at that point, we've... our girls were placed with us April 22. They were with us a little over a year and we adopted them. So in July of 23. So at that point, they had been adopted for 2 years and with us for over 3 years. And we're kind of thinking like, I'm not saying we won't foster again, but we're just kind of in a space right now of,
your house
we'll figure things out. Yeah, our house is pretty full. And I get a text from a friend. She's joined like our foster adopt group. And she asks me, do you know of anyone that could welcome a teen. Like she had heard about someone through someone, you know, one of those foster care grapevine conversations. And, you know, I'm just kind of thinking, oh, well, let me think of who I know, you know, especially being a case manager and our foster adopt group. I'm like, I know lots of families at sea. And I'm just kind of assuming they're in San Antonio because that's where, you know, a lot of cases are. And come to find out she's in the town that we live in and goes to a school nearby. And just hearing more about her, you know, we're just sitting in CAFO and like listening to the speaker. And like even his story is very impactful. So I'm already like emotional, but then I'm reading this and then it's almost like it just like, I just feel this heaviness for her, but in a very like personal way. Like obviously we hear these stories and they're heavy.
Not all of them land that way.
Right. And I just start weeping. And again, it's like, is it just because I'm
And Will's like, how many kids are you going to have?
I know. Plus Will. He is an amazing person. He is. But anyways, you know, so I like, you know, I'm trying to be quiet. So I'm just showing him the text thread. And he's like, yeah, well, okay. You know, like.
I love it.
Yeah, he's just fine with it. He has no, like rebuttals or, you know, he's just, okay. And I still, like, I think Ellie Holcomb then comes on to start singing. I'm still just sitting there, like, weeping during her songs. And I haven't felt that in a long time. And so I'm like, is this just like the Holy Spirit, like breaking my heart for this girl? I hear a lot of hard stories. So it's not like, oh, I just heard a hard story. I hear a lot of hard stories. But I just really felt weight with that one. And so got connected with her caseworker, talked with her, got reconnected with our agency to be like, hey, it sounds crazy again. Y'all thought it was crazy when we took 3 kids. Surprise. There's also a teenager that we're, you know, thinking about. And I guess short version of all that is we went back and forth a lot. There were just some fears of like her family being local and some of their history. And, you know, the town we're in is smaller than a big city. And so it's like, what is the connection there? And if she is a teenager, what is the still connection to that family that does those things? You know, just... and when Will and I started fostering, we weren't the families that were considering how it would impact our kids. It was just us. This was the first time we had to do that. And so that was a very real conversation too.
And it would have totally messed up, quote unquote, birth order. I mean, of the girls that were already in your home, have this like inserted big teenage girl in the house.
Right. All the things. But they are like our girls. They're like the sweetest little girls. They're like, oh yeah,
they are.
We'll all move into the same room so she can have the other room because we only have 2 other usable bedrooms. And, you know, they're like, yeah, I want a big sister. It'll be great. You know, so they're just super on board. Like, okay, if you're cool with it, we'll run with it, I guess. And did everything, like got relicensed, connected with her. And she spent like a school break with us and we're on track for her to be placed with us. And I think it's just those sad conversations we hear with like kids that have aged out of foster care. Not that she has yet, but she's getting closer to that of all family has ever done is hurt me.
Right.
Why would I try this again?
Right.
And so that really broke our hearts. That's where she has most recently landed with, she felt most comfortable moving to the transitional living part of her shelter. She only has a year left of high school and then just aging out.
Yeah.
And she did say that she wanted to keep a relationship with us to just kind of have like a mentor family in her life. So we have been doing that and we still get together with her. And we let her know, you know, if anything changes, our door is still open. Yeah. Which has also impacted because we've talked about like, well, if we were willing to get relicensed for her, like, should we get relicensed in general? We've done all the things, you know, but then I'm like, no, I really want her to know our door is open. So I feel like until she, you know, does go to college, because that's her plan the following year, is I don't think I would feel comfortable filling her space.
Yeah. It's one of those, we haven't talked too much about aging out, but for everybody, aging out is when they turn 18 and they're technically not in the state of Texas, is no longer their parent. Now they can choose to re-up and stay in care, but a lot of them don't because they're done with the state of Texas being their parent. But so they age out at 18 and they're really left on their own to figure life out, and it doesn't typically go well. So it's a huge need, and well, hopefully, you know, she'll figure it out, and it is an incredible piece to just be that open door of like, hey, if the pieces fall apart, you have a phone, you know, you have somebody you can call, and that's important. So were you necessarily justice-minded before foster care came into your life? Were you like that one that was always ready to defend? Or did foster care bring that out in you?
Yeah, I think it definitely magnified it. I think it was always there. Like, even as a little kid, I've been very for, like, the vulnerable and the lonely but not in, like, a bold way.
Right.
But I think foster care definitely, like I said, amplified that because you do, like, that's the role you're playing as an advocate for the kids in your care, or even now that we've adopted, that's kind of how we see ourselves in our church and in our community, as advocating for more people to get involved because we see how great of a need it is and feel so strongly about it. And so I think used to, where I would have rather, just kind of like lay low and be quiet, it's like, no, this is important. Like, my whole life, I would, I want people to know about this, whatever it costs, whatever, I don't care what they think about me or us or if it's crazy. Like, I just want them to know about this.
So you said you lead your ministry at your church, and you've done, tons of advocating even within your church. What do you see as people's biggest pushback about getting into the foster care space? What do you hear people say? Is they're like, I mean, I would, but...
Yeah, there's several that I know. I'm sure we all kind of hear, like, the most common ones. And I do think one, and again, they're all understandable. Like, we've all
legit.
come across these.
Yes, great arguments.
Yeah, we've all come across these questions. It's just that point of, like...
And we all had them.
Right. Yeah. So, like, even like I was saying, this go around, I did have kids to consider. So that was a conversation. Right. And so that's one you'll hear too, is like, how does it affect my kids? And yeah, like, those are very real things to talk through. But on the flip side, I know my girls, they came from foster care, so they've seen, the brokenness in that sense of what they came from. But then, there's other places we go or families we connect with where they're still getting to see what that looks like, like the broken places in our world. Yeah. And I don't want to hide them from that. I want them to, like, know it's there so that they do have a heart that, like, seeks after those. And so I think that's what if we try to shelter our kids from the hard places, we're sheltering them from, like, where Jesus wants us to go and who he wants us to connect with. Yeah. Right. And so, and I understand, like, it's probably going to bring on hard conversations or just like, well, why is it this way? Or why did they do that? And so, yeah, like, you have to be willing to talk through those things. But I don't know. I just think it's better than sheltering them from it. And for them to figure out as adults later. So that, and then also busyness. And I think that's like the American motto is I'm busy. and
Everybody has margin.
I get that. Yeah, we all are. Anyone can fill their schedule with anything. I think it just comes down to, like, what are we prioritizing our time, which is our life, for and with. Because our culture makes it so easy to just be like, yeah, like, I have this and I have that, and they're good things because all the people are doing them. Like, this is normal, but I just don't think normal is what we're called to. No. I don't think we're supposed to blend in.
And also that, like, I'll do it when.
Yes,
that could have been. That could have been y'all's easily. Like, of course, Lord. Like, no, first off, I'm not even married yet. I'm just dating this dude, and date 2, we're talking about it. And then also, we're just randomly newly married. Like, why would we, it's always that, well, after I get married, after I have biological kids, after I, get some level in my career, and then it's just like you constantly are moving the finish line. I think, because you can always find some other. I had very compelling reasons when the Lord asked, kind of put it in front of me as to why this was not my time, my season. He picked the wrong person. I've been reading in Exodus, and it's funny, like, with just listening to Moses, is when God's like, hey, I need you to go talk to the Pharaoh and, like, get him to let my people go. And Moses is like, I can't speak. I don't. He's just, like, running down the list. I'm like, same, man. Like, I had the same thing. I was like, I hear you. However, did you consider? Yeah,
I don't think any of us were like, like, I'm made for this, and I see no reason to.
I checked all the boxes. I should definitely do this. No, I think I'm hoping that's what people are getting from, as we do these stories, to just hear normal people that had plans and, hesitations and fears and very credible reasons to why not to, and yet they still did, and got to see the Lord to be faithful in their lives of like, I don't need you to know the next 20 years. Like, you don't know where this is going with your 3 girls or the teen as far as how their trauma is going to play out years from now. But he was like, just be faithful right now in this, go to the classes, sign up, say yes to these 3, go meet the teenager. Like,
Right.
I think that's one of the big threads that we've seen through this is just people being willing to say yes, not knowing the other 10 steps.
For sure.
Has that been something that you and Will have like talked about looking back on your journey into marriage and relationship of like, what a crazy ride?
Oh, for sure. And yeah, I think that's the thing. It's just, if God were to tell you like in the next 5 years, you're going to go through all this.
Yeah.
What? Excuse me? You know, but then looking back, it's like, we did go through all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is just that next step. And I think that's the grace of God of, you know, here's the next step. It's not the next mile or 10 miles, you know, the next step. Or else we would get too overwhelmed. But it still takes trust to trust him in that one step. You know, you do have to be bold enough to go to the training. You do have to be bold enough to say yes. And so, yeah, taking it one step at a time.
So looking forward, kind of to wrap it up and land the plane, actually I have one question before that. So it's kind of been thread through, but like, how did your faith be a foundation for this and kind of help you as you walked through it? Where did that, I guess maybe your faith journey, you know, why was this something that when you were choosing between the TV station and the agency, you're like, I felt more called to this. Like, what was that part of your story?
Yeah, I think because I can be a very black and white person, to me, I think it's very clear in scripture. Like, it's not like it's one kind of off in the middle of somewhere scripture, like God cares about, you know, It's like throughout the Old Testament and throughout the New Testament, like God cares about the vulnerable and he sets the lonely in families. And so I'm like, there's nothing in my life that thinks maybe I shouldn't dedicate my life to this. Like, it's important. It's important to God. And I think too, like, Will and I will, you know, just kind of jokingly to each other be like, YOLO, you know, whenever we're doing these decisions. But then it's like, but in a real sense, like these kids, they only live once too. And every time that we're saying no or putting it off until whenever, like their life is passing by too. So I guess, again, going back to faith, it's like, it's just clear in scripture that God cares for the lonely and for kids and for the vulnerable. And so that's, I think, just why my heart went that direction is I could go this way and I can make good. Like good things can come of going this direction too. But I just know in my heart, like this is where the Lord is leading me. And I think I was also part of a outreach ministry at my church and college where we got to connect with at-risk youth. And so I'm sure, you know, several of them had spent time in foster care and, you know, all these different things. And we would talk about how they just needed to see something different. They kind of only knew their world. But if they could see something different, like then they can kind of dream outside of all they've known. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of where faith stepped in. And is like we want to bring the gospel to them, but then also show them like what else life can be like outside of all they've ever known. Yeah.
And it'd be a very, where the faith is not just in words, but in actions. It's not like, you should take care of the vulnerable and love the widow and orphan. No, like go do it.
Yeah.
And not everyone's should foster.
Right.
At all. Because, and not to say that we're special at all, because we've clearly already showed that we did not want to do this. Yeah. But it is definitely something I feel like it is a calling because it's not easy. So as you're thinking forward, you know, you've got 3 girls, you're going to have 3 teenagers. I've already done that. I'll be praying for you. What are your kind of hopes and dreams for your girls as they grow up?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think I don't really see myself as the mom that's like, well, I hope they go to this school and I hope they have this job. Like, I don't feel that way towards them at all. I think it goes back to like what I said earlier about how we don't like ignore the kinds of places that maybe they came from. Like we still, you know, enter into them and connect with people. And I hope that's something they carry throughout their life. Yeah. Isn't that, you know, like my life started out in this really hard place and
I escaped it and now I don't have to.
Yeah, like I escaped it. I'm done with that. That's true in one sense, right? Like you're in a different family and there's a different trajectory for your life. But I also want them to like care about those that could be in, you know, these, whether it's homelessness or trafficking or addiction, just all these different dark spaces. I want them to, have a heart for them.
Yeah, empathy, compassion.
Yeah.
That like see them.
Right. And for anyone, not just, those groups, but I just want them to have a life where they care about people and aren't, selfish and only care about climbing the ladder, because it's so easy for us to fall into that in our culture.
As they say, you can see beyond your own belly button. You're just not looking down and thinking about yourself. You're like scanning out and looking for where the Lord is leading.
Right. If they love the Lord and love people, like,
you got it. You got it.
And that might not even happen too. I know that, but that's my hope for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all of our hopes for our kids.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is there anything else we didn't say that you want to say? We covered a lot.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Well, good. Well, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you sharing your story, and tell your husband I said thank you for letting you speak on his behalf. But thank you guys for watching another episode of Running Toward and listening in. If you have comments, questions, please add them there. Give us a like and a follow, and we have more incredible stories coming. So thanks for joining us today.